Hey, Nelson Gonzalez here in this third video of this four-part series in which we're discussing the advantages and disadvantages of the four different methods of applying controlled release fertilizer. In the two previous videos, we discussed top dressing and dibbling. I'll put links in the description and add them to the end screen of this video. I recommend you watch all four of the videos. That way you can better determine which method of application is best for your operation. In this third video though, I wanted to go over subdressing, and this is a method of application that's used when stepping up a smaller container to a larger container. A great example of this would be stepping up a plant grown in a 1 gallon to a 3 gallon. And the way you go about performing this method is that you take your 3 gallon container, fill it up with a small amount of media, and you want just enough in there so that when you put your 1 gallon plant into the 3 gallon, the top of the root ball of the plant is level with what will be the top of the media in your 3 gallon container. Now you can continue to apply more media to the 3 gallon container, filling it up to about 1.5 to 2 inches below what will be the surface of the media for the 3 gallon. Once that's done, get your predetermined amount of controlled release fertilizer and apply it over the top of the media, applying it as far away from the plant as you can and making sure that it's distributed evenly all around the pot. Now we just simply go ahead and add more media over the controlled release fertilizer to cover the fertilizer and finish filling our pot. Now with subdressing, one of the biggest advantages that it can provide you with is that it's a very efficient way for you to fertilize your crops. The fact that the fertilizer sits higher up in the container means that the nutrients will have to travel down through the media before they're leached out of the pot, and this just increases the probability that the roots will absorb those nutrients as they slowly trickle down through the media with every watering. That being said, in order to take full advantage of this method, always make sure that the fertilizer is placed, as mentioned earlier, 1.5 to 2 inches below the surface of the media so that the nutrients have the best chance of being utilized by the plant. Another advantage that subdressing provides you with, and it's very similar to dibbling, is that if your container falls over, it's very difficult for the CRF to fall out of the pot since the fertilizer is placed inside the media. It can happen, but a lot of soil would have to fall out of the pot. Also, the fact that the fertilizer sits inside the media gives you the advantage of reducing the amount of weed pressure in the nursery. With subdressing, if you think about it, we're really feeding the plant instead of feeding the weeds because the nutrients are just a little further away from the top of the soil where the weed seeds will germinate. And lastly, subdressing will give you an advantage over top dressing in regards to performance. I've done this trial myself in the past where I've top dressed a group of plants and subdressed another group with the same rates, same fertilizer, and the end result was better with the plants that were subdressed. And the main reason this happens is that when you subdress, that controlled release fertilizer is exposed to higher, more consistent temperatures as opposed to when it's top dressed. Now, as much as subdressing can be a very effective method to provide nutrition to your crops, it also has a couple disadvantages, and I think the greatest disadvantage of subdressing is that the application requires a little more time and labor than other methods of applying controlled release fertilizer. But if you're willing to spend a little more time and money, it can be very effective. And lastly, another disadvantage of this method, and again, it's very similar to dibbling, but not as concerning with this method, is that you have a very large concentration of fertilizer sitting right next to that root system. So naturally, you'll have higher salts in that area, which can burn roots. So that can be an issue just depending on the plant species or varieties or your growing practices. What I recommend, and I recommend this with anything new that you start in the nursery or greenhouse, is that you trial it first before implementing it throughout your entire production. And also, I recommend use NutriCoat for this application. It's the safest and most consistent controlled release fertilizer in the market today. Thanks for watching my video. If you really want to improve your crop's nutritional program, contact me, I'll help you out, or I'll put you in contact with your local profile sales manager. We've helped other growers, and I know we can do the same for you. As I promised, if you haven't seen the two previous videos in this series, here they are.